To discuss this further, we are joined by legal practitioner Liborous Oshoma. Liborous, thank you for joining me on the news. My first question, did this suspension come to you as a surprise? I mean, given the time frame, it was suspended.
Yesterday, I made a post on my Facebook and Instagram wall, and then I said this strike, I used the local parlance, I said this strike tie wrapper. And a lot of the comments I got was, tie anything, that this is the usual labor. At the end of the federal government would negotiate with them, and they would suspend the strike, and then they will go back again, back and forth. And all of this wouldn't have happened really if the government had been consistent in complying with the Labor Act, which prescribed 5 years adjustment in the minimum wage. The last time the minimum wage was pegged at 30,000 minimum wage was more than 5 years ago. So in the government of President Muhammadu Buhari, all of that ought to have been addressed. And once that was addressed, this government would have inherited this labor crisis. Unfortunately, this government came on board. This government also came with its own hardship. Subsidies gone, while the citizens are subsidizing the lifestyle of politicians. The only thing you hear from national assemblies is last year and now it's a budget padding and national anthem change. And then all kinds of allegations of humongous, salaries and allowances. And why the people, the workers are struggling, to press the federal government and the state government also to pay a minimum wage higher than 30,000. And then while that is going on, electricity tariff was increased, about 500% increment. The forest was floated. Mind you, we don't produce anything here. Even the oil that we have, crude oil, we don't even refine it. So all of this added to the pressure on the meager salary of the average worker. But unfortunately, the saddest part is the fact that while the federal government and labor union are negotiating, who negotiates for the average, ordinary Nigerian worker? We're not talking about, the federal government employs about 18% of the total workforce in Nigeria. The state government also collectively do not take up to the remaining 50%. So the total workforce, so who now negotiate for the other 50% that is, either in the organized private sector or some of us that, are small and medium scale, enterprise, who negotiate on our behalf in terms of, the increment in foodstuff and the hyperinflation that is happening in the country. So these are the many challenges that I think this will be a recurrent decimal if the government does not address the deficit in infrastructure to stimulate the economy so that, people will be able to produce. And once you have the private sector is organized, I can tell you that labor strike will not be as effective as we affect it now.
Still talking on the industrial action, what do you consider as maybe insights into the outcome of the 6-hour meeting between the federal government and the organized labor leadership? And what were the key points of, agreement and contention, you feel were pretty nutty or resonated with you, particularly with some saying that the demands of labor, talking about the figure, talking about 600 plus, is not reasonable and might even, result in hyperinflation?
I would say that that demand from day one had never resonated with me. Yeah, because the labor also know that it is unreasonable. Because taking us back to Doji Award, when you have, more money in your hands, chasing fewer goods. And like I said earlier, we don't produce anything. So basically what you're going to do is you increase the salaries, you're also going to increase the prices of goods that have already been increased. And because you don't produce anything, if you earn more salary, your landlord will ask for more money. The tomato seller will also ask for more money when his landlord is asking for more money. My, young workers will also ask for more money. At the end of the day, you create hyperinflation. There is more money in circulation, but fewer goods to buy. So what you're going to have, like we've had, was it during SAP? The only time we've had the highest rate of inflation, that's about 79% increase. So that's why for me, what we should focus more on is the infrastructural deficit. This structure of feeding bottle government that we operate, where everybody goes to the federal government, once, the federal government breathes, everybody catches cold. When you should focus on your local government, you are calling on the federal government to come to your aid. And then the labor is negotiating salary increase. It is the federal government and not the state governors. At the end of the day, the federal government can decide to pay 60, 70,000 naira, and not all governors will be able to pay 70,000 naira. So all of this should have been, if the country is properly structured, all of these negotiations should have even been at the local, the state level, and then the infrastructures are handled at the regional level. There won't be need for one huge negotiation where you have to shut down the entire country because you are negotiating a wage increase. Take the national grid, for example. For over time, a lot of people have been saying, let us decentralize, power. But what did we decentralize? What did we put in the hands of the private sector? Distribution. So generation and transmission. Transmission is still in the hand of the federal government, 100%. So anytime the federal government labor workers decide to go on strike, what do? They shut down transmission. Once you shut down transmission, the distribution companies are at a loss. They are private companies. They are at a loss. So I won't, if I am a prepaid meter, certainly I'm not going to pay bills for electricity I didn't consume. So there's a lot of multiplying effect. That is why we need to really look at the structure of the country and find a way to ensure that comply with the labor rules. Let there be holistic negotiations where not just the federal government will comply, and then some of these organizations that are behemoths, you don't just have them, have the monopoly of having the effect of shutting down the entire country. And the government need to also find a way of cutting costs to ensure that some of these costs that you cut, you plow it back into critical sector.
I mean, talking about cutting costs, Liborous, talking about cutting costs. Now, what's your assessment of the President Bola Tinubu's commitment to establishing a national minimum wage higher than 60,000 naira? And what implications could this have, particularly not just on the economy, but also on the working living standards of Nigerians, including public servants? By public servants, I mean politicians that were, whether elected or appointed into office, where some Nigerians are also clamoring that they should earn the same figure as the minimum wage.
First and foremost, let's quickly understand minimum wage. Minimum wage does not mean that every worker is earning 60,000 naira. No, that's not minimum wage. Minimum wage, because a lot of people think once you say minimum wage, it means every worker earns that amount. That's what a lot of people don't understand. Minimum wage means that this is the barest, the base that you can pay anybody. Any worker in government payroll should not earn anything less than 60,000 naira if that is the minimum wage. So you start from 60 and it graduates upward. So, but for me, the structure, I agree that the structure of salaries for public servants should also be fixed, just like the civil service rules. The salaries of civil servants are fixed. So the public servants, political appointment, their salary also should be tailored along the salary of the civil servants. It should be tailored along the civil service rules. So that's one way of cutting costs. And then also, so we all know what a civil servant earns, what a director earns in the federal civil service. It should also reflect in what a senator earns. And not a senator's take-home and allowances that, we just bandit figure, we really don't know. And then you have all kinds of perks, constituency project and, all of that. So what it does, it makes politics more attractive than the workforce. So you can't cut costs that way. And then this perks of office. The moment you become a politician, you're entitled to a policeman, you're entitled to a house. You retire as a governor, you're entitled to one house in Abuja, one in Lagos. The president's clothes, are bought for him. The wife, the children, the families are taken care of. The private jets or the presidential fleet, we no longer discuss them now. You know, these are the same people that while they were in opposition, they told us that they were going to reduce the fleet. So all of these are ways of cutting costs. It's not just enough to say, oh, if I have 25 people going on a trip with me, I'll cut it down to 10 because of extra code of office. That is good. But then, what is the cost of the jet? Look at President Ruto of Kenya. He said he was to travel to America. And they came with a bill of 100 million shillings, from 100 million to 70 million. And he said it was too much for the Kenyan government. And so he reached out to his friends, and the friends said, well, how much are you willing to pay? He said he cannot pay more than 20 million shillings. And so they said, okay, bring 10 million, we'll contribute 10 million. That's how you cut costs. All this essay to the essay to the essay to the minister, and the number of ministers also is just too much.
All right, Liborous.
We don't, sometimes we don't know the numbers. We don't even know what some of them are doing. So these are ways of cutting costs. So you now have enough money to plow back into critical sectors. Then you don't need, some persons breathing down your neck or calling off strike.
I believe this particular line of thought or conversation, would of course require more time. But this is the bit time can permit on the news. Once again,
it doesn't require much time to take those decisions. It's just the willpower. Thank you.
All right, Liborous Oshoma. Once again, thank you for your time on the news. Thank you.
Always my pleasure.